Welcome to Get the Balance Right, a podcast for creative entrepreneurs looking to grow their business in a healthy, sustainable way. I'm your host, Heather Zeitzwolf, CPA and business advisor. Each week, you will learn actionable steps to streamline your processes, increase your profits, and make a bigger impact as a purpose-driven leader. Join me in conversations with CEOs and renegades in digital media, marketing, advertising, and design. Want to ignite your passion for business? Then let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Get the Balance Right podcast. I am your host, Heather Zeitzwolf. On today's show, we are talking about using technology as an entrepreneur to help you automate your processes and tasks and bring more balance to your busy life. To discuss this subject, I am joined by Tess Ball. Tess is a business coach who runs an online community called the Small Business Incubator, and she's the host of the Shitty Idea Time podcast. As you can tell from her title of her podcast, Tess does not hold back. She's the real deal, and she celebrates everyone's freak flag. Some may think that she's a bit edgy, but if you've listened to my show, then you know edgy is my thing. Tess has a shaved head, which is totally adorable on her. When I saw a picture of her, I was like, I need to have her on my show. And just an FYI, if there are any delicate ears in the audience, Tess does drop some F-bombs and other flavored language. But based on all that, I think I've assured you that this is not going to be a boring conversation about technology or processes and tasks. As you may know, I'm a CPA and I'm in the middle of tax season. Do you feel bad for me? Please feel bad for me. Okay, I'm not going to complain. I'm going to be positive about this. I work mainly with small businesses, and when new clients come to me during tax season, I often see the same 3 issues. Each one of these are intertwined and affect the other. These issues tie directly with today's topic of automation and using technology in your business. In my line of work, I encounter so many problems where business owners relied on their bookkeeping software without understanding how accounting actually works. There are several bookkeeping software companies out there that claim that you can do it yourself. It's so easy. But I'm warning you, if you don't know what you're doing, you can create a hot mess in minutes. It's actually cheaper to hire someone to do it right than to clean up the disaster later. You're an entrepreneur. You're not expected to know how accounting works. Leave it to people who do know. Regarding your finances in your business, I want you to consider 3 things. Number 1, treat your business like a business. 2, be proactive, not reactive in your business. And number 3, understand your numbers in your business. If you have someone taking care of your books, yes, you are on the right track. But for the rest of you, do you find yourself scrambling at tax time? You're not alone. I know thinking about this stuff is not sexy at all, and you might have a serious mindset issue around money. I understand. I totally get it. You are not alone. Please do not have any shame around this topic. If you do have shame or mindset issues, what I want you to do is put it into an imaginary beach ball. Okay, is it in there? All right, now toss that beach ball across the room. It's out of sight. There, it's gone. All right, so this is a shame-free zone. Now, I know this stuff can be intimidating and even boring. Your eyes might be rolling back in your head like, taxes? You're going to talk about that? Let's face it, as entrepreneurs, we like to be creative. We don't want to have to think about that kind of stuff. That's great and all to be creative, but I want to empower you to be engaged in the financial side of your business. And to do so, I highly recommend that you get help in this area. Many of the issues that I encounter are caused by entrepreneurs not paying attention to their numbers. But you don't have to do it alone. When it comes to your finances, invest in your business. Get help. Hire a bookkeeper. Hire a CPA. If you have mindset issues around money, hire a money coach. And to secure your future, work with a financial advisor. Whether you file your taxes as a sole proprietor, an S-corp, a partnership, these tips will all apply to you. Even if you work with a bookkeeper, please consider these 3 things. Number 1, treat your business like a business. 2, be proactive, not reactive. And 3, understand your numbers. If you call yourself an entrepreneur, then treat your business like a business. If you commingle your personal and business expenses in the same bank account, please stop. Please stop right now. It is so vital for your business to have a banking and credit card account specifically for your business. If you don't want to have a credit card account, that's fine. Just have a banking account, but make it specifically for your business. These accounts should only contain business transaction activity. What I mean by this is, don't be putting personal stuff on your debit or your credit card. If you commingle your personal and business expenses in the same bank account, please stop right now. I am seriously warning you, do not commingle your personal expenses with your business. I've seen this countless times and it always leads to problems. When business owners commingle business and personal expenses, their financials get incredibly messy and difficult to fix. And worse, the financials are meaningless unless they're cleaned up in a timely manner. Uncleaned, commingled books will never give you an accurate picture of the financial status of your business. To run a business like a business, you need an accurate picture of where you've been financially and where you're going. You can't make reliable projections if you're working with garbage. I have a client, let's call her Susie. When Susie came to me to help her with her books, she was totally perplexed. Based on her monthly sales, she felt like she was making more money in her business than her books were showing her. If you were just to look at her net income, now net income is gross sales minus all expenses. So looking at her books, based on her net income, she appeared to be on the skids. Based on her gross sales, she was making decent money, but she was spending way beyond her means in her business. But after digging through Susie's books, I discovered all sorts of personal stuff in there. She had been doing the commingling that I was talking about. Once I cleaned it up, we were able to see her real net income. Turns out, she was barely spending any money in her business. She was actually quite profitable. But where did all the money go? Well, turns out, Susie's real problem stemmed from issues around money mindset. She had a shopping problem. Susie's mindset caused her to have serious issues around money, making money, spending money. It caused her to spend money like a fiend on shopping and lavish meals. Through money coaching, I was able to help her to develop 2 budgets, one for her personal life and the other for her business. Soon she was able to reinvest back into her business to help it grow, and she was bringing home way more money. Surprises. We all love surprises, right? Surprises are for birthdays, though. They're not for your financials. Unfortunately, many business owners don't pay attention to their financials until tax time. Frankly, if it wasn't for the need to file a tax return, I'll bet many entrepreneurs wouldn't even bother keeping books. This may sound extreme, but I see this all the time when new clients come to me. Their financials scare them. They were afraid to ask questions for fear of looking stupid because their prior accountant used jargon that confused and intimidated them. The fact is, this stuff is confusing. Finding someone who can explain it all to you in plain English is key. You really want to visit your financials, clean financials, as often as possible. Daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. You need good, clean numbers to avoid any unwanted surprises at tax time. Here's the dealio. Bank accounts need to be reconciled every month. I mention this to my clients, and they look at me like I have 3 heads. If you don't know what a bank rec is, that's totally okay. This is why you need to hire a bookkeeper. I know we're living in the age of automation, and that's part of what we're going to talk about today. But bank feeds sometimes break, and these transactions get erased. Invoices don't get matched correctly. There's all these things that can happen. Therefore, each month, your books need to be reconciled against the bank statements. Like I said, if you're not sure how to handle this, then hire a bookkeeper. In fact, you should just hire one anyways. This is not the area of your business to get cheap. Now, I understand all about being cheap. I'm totally cheap. But please, hire a bookkeeper. Don't be cheap on this. We're talking about your money. All right, the 3 tips. Treat your business like a business, aka don't commingle your funds. Be proactive, not reactive. And get help understanding your numbers. To drive these 3 tips home, I want to give you a word of warning by sharing a story. If you're one of those people who tends to wait until tax time to figure out your expenses and income, you can be causing yourself tremendous grief, which could have been avoided. This gets especially bad, surprise, surprise, if you've been commingling your transactions. I prepared a tax return years ago for a new client. Let's call him Gary. He owned a lucrative business. He could have afforded a bookkeeper, but instead, he chose to look at his bank balance occasionally to gauge where he was at. He thought looking at his bank balance was a reliable method. Many entrepreneurs use this method. Maybe you use this method. Well, I am here to tell you that this is a terrible method. Your bank balance is a snapshot in time. You could have $50K in the bank when you check it, and then 5 minutes later, bing, your rent clears. Bing, your payroll clears. What? In a matter of minutes, you could go from $50K to $5. Throughout the year, Gary would check his bank balance. Because it was low, he assumed he didn't owe much in taxes. Here's the thing, Gary never even looked at his bank statements. He just relied on that bank balance. He didn't even keep a spreadsheet. He had a completely warped view of his business, and therefore, he never even sent in estimates because he thought he didn't owe much in tax. This assumption was wrong, dead wrong. Remember I told you to never commingle your funds? Gary obviously never got that memo. To prepare his tax return, I had to reconstruct the entire year based on his bank statements. Then the shizzle hit the fan. Gary forgot that he used his business credit card to purchase some hefty-size personal transactions. Turns out, he forgot about a ridiculously expensive barbecue grill that he purchased on his company card. Dude, I never knew a barbecue grill could be so expensive. I saw that on his credit card and I was like, oh, you must have gotten some sort of business asset. What is this? I thought it was like maybe a copy or something based on the price. No, it was a grill. I couldn't believe how expensive it was. Unfortunately, the barbecue wasn't the only thing commingled. It got worse. It was not just on his credit card, but it was also through his checking account. There were countless other personal transactions that probably seemed inconsequential at the time, but in total were so unbelievably substantial. Once I reconstructed his financials for the year, we discovered his real net income. Turns out, his business was a moneymaker. That was great news. But here's the painful part. Gary hadn't set aside money to cover his taxes. Remember, he assumed that he wouldn't owe that much in tax? He never even sent in estimates. Ouch. This hurt because April 15th was right around the corner, and now he was stuck with a huge tax bill that was due all at once, not to mention penalties. Here's the real kick in the pants. Not only did he have to pay Uncle Sam thousands upon thousands of dollars with his tax return, his estimate tax payments for the current year were due as well. But it gets worse. Gary had not been proactive. He had not put any money away for taxes, for the prior year or for his estimates. After using what little cash he had in the bank to pay his prior year taxes, he was now flat broke. In addition, he was unable to make the quarterly estimates, digging himself into a larger hole. So much for all that money he brought in. Now, the irony of the story is that Gary was a financial broker. He was great at handling other people's money, but not his own. Don't be Gary. Get help when it comes to your books. And use software. For God's sake, at least use a spreadsheet. Whether it's me or somebody else, hire a bookkeeper, an accountant, a CPA to maintain your books. It is one of the best decisions you will ever make in your business. If you need help with your books, maybe I can help you. Set up a discovery call with me and we'll talk about your situation and see if I'm a good fit for you. I'm pretty connected when it comes to other CPAs, bookkeepers. So if I'm not a good match for you, I can help you find someone else. Just go to the show notes and set up a discovery call with me. All right, I'm going to get off my soapbox now and switch gears. Here is my conversation with the lively and raw Tess Ball. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Get the Balance Right podcast. I am here with Tess Ball. Hey.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad to have you on my podcast. For the people that don't know you, who may not be a part of your community online, who are you? Tell us who you are and what you do and all those great things.
I was a longtime marketer, designer, turned gym owner, and now I have combined those two passions to bring big brand marketing knowledge to the small business owners who need it. When I was in the gym ownership space, I realized a lot of my friends sorely lacked this comprehensive, holistic, foundational knowledge that I had been fortunate enough to get in the marketing industry. I have turned now to business coaching and community building and educating and talking about all this stuff so that more business owners could experience the freedom and success that I did during my time as a gym owner. Like, it was magical. And for the people who want it, I want to be able to support them.
Wow. Gym ownership. I did not expect that. Screech at the tires for a second here. I want to ask a little bit about this. Gym ownership, were you a franchise owner?
I was not. So I had a sweet little studio for mostly one-on-one and some small group training. Fitness for introverts. I realized there was a huge hole in the market for people like me who were a little bit more intellectual, a little bit nerdier, a little bit quieter, who wanted a space to be super badass and also quiet. Like, I don't need to listen to 9 Inch Nails when I lift. I can just have some chill vibes going on with some lavender essential oil and also lift heavy. It was a 400 square foot studio. So it was pretty tiny and intentionally small and just fucking beautiful. The relationships I got to build in that space, probably the happiest time of my life.
Wow. What made you pivot into becoming a coach?
During my time in marketing, I loved being an art director. So in that role, very much coaching. Here's how color and shape work together. And here's how you make people click a button. As a gym owner, I love coaching movement, coaching people to a deeper awareness of their own body, coaching people in some foundational lifts, right? I realized that coaching business is no different than all of these other things I had been doing throughout my various careers. I've always been a coach. Do I like calling myself a business coach? Not necessarily. I don't necessarily see me in this beautiful Instagram-worthy life, but at the core of it, I've always been a teacher. I've always been a systems nerd, whatever that system is, whether it's design or the body or business, and being able to communicate about those things, watch people go from what the fuck to, oh, can I swear on your podcast?
Yeah, you can. I am totally free with all that. I'm totally against being censored. So go ahead. Go right ahead.
Okay. But there is this holy shit, this is so overwhelming moment, no matter what big goal you're talking about. And I love witnessing that moment where people are like, oh, I can totally do this. I reluctantly became a business coach, but I've been a coach forever.
Yeah, it's interesting how if you just follow your passion, how it'll take you down different roads and they all intertwine. When I decided to become a CPA, people were like, what, really? Well, I am a nerd. To me, it all made sense. I love numbers. I love systems and data and all these things. So it made sense to me, but people were like, wait, what? Like, you're a creative person. What? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, I get you. I get you.
Got a lot going on, but we are going to narrow this topic down. I wanted to pick your brain about a lot of things, but I think we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that is the power of automation. I love technology, using technology. I think it's so exciting that we have technology. Tell me about this. What is your thoughts on the power of automation?
Yeah, I am a huge proponent of automation. And as a longtime solopreneur, it often gives you the ability to scale in the way that adding members to your team does. For those people who are in a space of, I'm growing, I'm expanding, and I need to either hire or add some technology, automation can oftentimes bridge that gap. It can help you determine and discover what you need. By putting data into a machine, you get really good at understanding who you are, what you need, and how to create the systems, because oftentimes what we're doing is ambiguous. Take any business system, any piece of automation, whether it's your email scheduling or your actual scheduling, it's hard to know what you need before you really dive in. And the thought of paying somebody to be on your team and figuring it out while they're on the clock can be really overwhelming financially, especially if you're working with a short runway. And what technology oftentimes allows you to do is play in that sandbox with very little risk. You can figure out some of your systems. You can figure out exactly what you need before you have somebody charging you $30 an hour for that playtime. I think that's the most easy way in and like the most powerful benefit for a lot of new business owners.
When a business owner is trying to get things automated, sometimes taking on a new piece of technology, although it may not be expensive, it may be time consuming. You have to play around with it and all of that. Do you help them figure out what their tech stack is going to be so that the technology kind of talks with each other? How does that work with you?
From everything from website platforms to course creation platforms to email delivery services to CRMs, there are so many moving parts and talking parts. The first question that I help with is, how do I know which one to pick? The first step in that is zooming out. And I love how you talk about your values on your podcast, because it really goes back to that. It's, what do you need out of this software? What do you need out of this piece of technology based on who you are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what you value? Let's look at course development platforms, for example. We have Kajabi and Teachable and MemberSpace and Mighty Networks, and we have all of these different options, and they all have similar features. And oftentimes those features are on like a sliding scale. If you look at an audio mixer, right? Like certain volumes are turned up a little bit higher on different products for different feature sets. What feature sets are most important to you as the business owner? Which feature sets do you like really need help with, so that you can pick the right platform for you? I think there's often this dichotomy that one technology or the other can be better or worse. Oh, what's the best course delivery platform? It depends on who you are. It depends on what you need. Answering that question is fundamental. And then, yes, how does that speak with all of your other platforms? How does it integrate? How can you make a seamless, easy transition from platform to platform so your people are taken care of in your sleep? So that you don't have to worry about the gaps being filled, so that you don't have to worry about checking your email on your vacation. It's all humming right along. And ultimately, your relationships are being well taken care of.
When an entrepreneur wants to start getting automated, what are some of the key areas where you think automation is the most helpful in the beginning?
My first piece of advice to anybody wondering where to start automating is to track your time. And I have a tool for that. Use Toggle. It's a really easy, free time tracking app. It's the best way to figure out where your time and energy sucks are. Because oftentimes I see entrepreneurs like, oh my gosh, I need to automate my lead magnet and get people into my funnel. But really, that's not what they need. If they just examine where their time and energy is going, they probably need to focus on this other thing over here. Everybody has their propensity toward wasting time in a certain area. It's a ton of time. I would really look at where you as an individual, again, going back to knowing yourself more, knowing your guilty pleasures in business, because whether you think you have them or not, you have them. There are things you waste time doing. Tracking your time so that you can truly zoom out, get this high level overview, this objective, emotionless. This is how I really spend my day. I know I was shocked when I looked at my schedule. I was doing some dumb shit with my time and with my energy that was not moving my business forward. And I guarantee we all have those blind spots. So track your time, figure it out. And then you'll probably notice that you spend more time than you should or could on email, on scheduling. Scheduling is a big one. Scheduling is something that I walk a lot of people through. And especially for people who are content creators, How can you, when somebody schedules a meeting with you, make sure that you have every single thing you need? If you have a contract that you need, if you have a questionnaire that you need, if you have an agreement that you need, make sure that's all done before somebody gets access to your calendar. That scheduling is automated, and then they're automatically like put on your email list. The whole flow works together. That's probably the biggest one, that like scheduling comprehensive thing.
Hey there, this is Heather. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. And if you are, if you wouldn't mind, please hit the subscribe button now. That way you'll never miss an episode. All right, now back to the podcast. What about calendar blocking? What do you think of that?
My highest self loves calendar blocking. My guilty pleasure selves need the accountability of time tracking. It's a both and. I block out all of my mornings with the tasks that need to be done every week. I'm working on video editing, and then I have my office hours, and then my afternoons open for meeting. Those big things that I tend to put off because now I know what I put off. But I know that for me, because I'm home by myself, I don't have coworkers to keep me on track. I don't have a manager looking over my shoulder, because as entrepreneurs, we don't get the luxury of somebody keeping us on task. That's up to us. My accountability piece is my time tracking to let me know whether or not I've been in alignment with and accountable to my calendar.
Do you think when people are timing what they're doing, now I'm not sure about Toggle because I've never used that software. Some software will actually track, if you go into a different piece of software, it'll track that. Do you think people should do like that high level just to make sure that they're really figuring out how much time they're wasting on certain things? Or is it just the act of, okay, now I'm going in to check my LinkedIn, or I'm going to check my Instagram, and now you're actually writing these things down as, oh, I'm in there again.
For me, it is a self-awareness thing. I have never liked time tracking. To be fair, as a freelancer, when I was doing freelance design, I would refuse jobs if they asked me to track my time, because it often got really cumbersome and I was not motivated in those situations to track my time. I don't want somebody to know whether or not I'm in this Adobe program or this email program. That seems really invasive. But for me, if I switch tasks and I go back to my calendar and I have to switch tasks in my time tracking app, if I have to switch the tasks, it gives me that moment of pause, that gut check. Do you really want to be on Instagram now? Or do you want to like actually bang this thing out that you need to get done for tomorrow? And more than likely, I'm like, actually, I should probably work on that proposal. So it's my own gut check.
Yeah, it's like an accountability for yourself, right?
Totally. And there's no shame in it. If I do actually make the choice to go check Instagram, I can do that with a clear conscience. Actually, it is my choice now to go peruse the old gram and not get this proposal done, but I'm going to own it and be more empowered to use my time the way I'm intending to, and not just letting these automatic habits creep up into my day.
When I started using a scheduling app, that freed up so much time for me. Besides tracking your time, scheduling your time, what are some other automations that people can do to save some time?
One of the biggest ones that has helped me tremendously and helps a ton of clients is an email nurture sequence or a welcome flow. I suggest doing this, not even because it saves you a ton of time in the actual emailing, but because by doing the work to set up an email nurture sequence, and if you don't know what that is, it's maybe a month to 3 months to 6 months of pre-existing content that gets dripped out to your audience based on when they sign up for your newsletter or your funnel or your freebie or whatever. They automatically get served this content. Just doing the work to create that will give you so much clarity as a business owner, so much confidence in understanding who you are, what your people want, what your people need, what people are going to open, what people are going to read, what people are going to click. It gives you so much valuable information, this one task, that it saves immeasurable time in damn near every area of business. That's one that I'm a big proponent of. If you're somebody that sends emails regularly to your audience, or if you want to grow your email list, come up with 5, 10 emails that really get to the core of what you do, that deliver high value to your people so that you can see, can I love them up so much in the process of 10 emails that they can't wait to hand me their money? Or get into relationship with me or go hang out with my friends and use their services. Yeah. What can you learn about your audience through a 10 email sequence? You will learn so much, guaranteed.
Now, you're a marketing person, but what about people that are maybe not as savvy in that department? Would you advise them to work with somebody to do some sort of marketing campaign to drip this out?
Yes and no. When you are brand new, there are certain tasks that, especially if you're curious and you're like, I really want to get my hands dirty and I have enough of a financial and emotional runway to do it myself. If you're like, I just want to learn this thing because it excites me, do it. Because you'll come away with so much knowledge and that knowledge you get will transfer. If you learn an email delivery software, the next piece of software you have to learn is going to be that much easier because you have some experience getting your hands dirty in software. If, however, you have a shorter runway, whether that's financial or energetic, hire somebody. Be really honest with yourself. Do I have 3 months before this thing has to be up and running? If that's the case, you probably should hire an expert who can fast track you to that shorter timeline. If you have an unlimited amount of time, few extra bucks, hell yeah, go for it. Dig in, learn. YouTube's awesome. I feel like the power of YouTube could not be stated any more boldly. It's amazing. You can learn so much, but it's a cost, right? Like it costs you time. So just be realistic with your time and understand that a professional who's been in the space, I can tell you exactly why or why not to choose MailChimp or Kajabi or ConvertKit or HubSpot. I know the answers to your questions because I've been in the programs for years and years. Like I was a MailChimp ambassador in 2008, 9. That's a long time with that program. If you want the fast answers, talk to an expert, but there's so much goodness in learning.
It also seems if you are involved in the marketing process, then you start to understand how you're going to sell your product or service. If you have a signature offer, if you are trying to figure out what the text is that you're going to use to convey this to your audience, then it seems like the whole sales process will be a lot easier because you've already talked about it.
Bingo. Yes. That also leads into when you do work with professionals, work with people who educate you. So whether that's a CPA or a lawyer or a marketing professional, especially if you're a new entrepreneur, like this is your first rodeo, make sure to work with people who are happy to take the time and educate you, who put valuable content out on their blog or a podcast like this, who are invested in the education of small business owners, because you do learn so much about how to sell your product or manage your books, or you learn what the fuck a contract is even for when you are surrounded by professionals who are invested in your education. There's a difference between finding somebody that's like, can you just do it for me? I would caution heavily against the do it for me at the very beginning. There's a time and place for that, but wait a little bit. Learn as much as you can about your own business before totally abdicating responsibility.
There's that whole thing about, oh, you should be working on your business rather than in your business. And I think there is a balance for sure. When I'm looking at people's books and I'm looking at how much revenue they're bringing in, some people just really can't afford to actually pay people to do stuff yet. Like you have to get to a certain point. And I realize sometimes you have to spend money to make money and you need to hire an assistant. But some people, they're bare bones and they really just need to do the work.
And there's the question of privilege and power and wealth and ability. Some people do have the privilege and the luxury of hiring out. Some people legitimately don't. Starting where you're at and being in community with people who empower you wherever that is the most important thing. Because yeah, there are some real life realities. My first business, I couldn't hire shit. Like I was on the Department of Revenue website trying to figure out like, what the hell is excise tax? I don't know. Was that wise? No. Would I do it differently now? Absolutely. Did I do what I can to take one step forward to be able to get to the point where I could hire it out and learn these things the right way? Yeah. And sometimes you got to just be gritty, figure it out, and pray for the best. Surround yourself by people who believe in you, who will get you to that place of better education, better knowledge, better systems, less risk. ultimately in your business.
You actually have a community. It's an incubator, and you incorporate people from these different professions. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, it started because, again, as a gym owner, I was like, how the fuck do I find an IP attorney? Do I Yelp that? It was like back in the time of Yelp. And that clearly doesn't feel good. You're like, how do I find a CPA that I trust, that I jive with, that gets me? I didn't even know that was possible back then. I think it's really a disservice to small business owners these days to present business as these bits and pieces. Your money's over here, and your legal's over here, and your marketing's over here, and your sales is over here. In large corporations, that doesn't work. It's called siloing. When we have each department in an organization siloed away, doing their own little thing, not communicating with each other, that leads ultimately to lower revenue, higher failure rate. And I think as small business owners, we do that a lot. We have our bookkeeping that we do over here, totally disconnected from, well, I guess I need to copyright my freebie. And then we have our sales system going on and nothing is integrated. I spent the better part of 2 years assembling my superhero dream team of people who I wish I had when I started. Since then, it's grown and blossomed into this beautiful thing, but every month we focus on a different pillar in this very holistic, integrated way where we have a lawyer come in and talk about legal stuff. We have somebody who's experienced in brand messaging come in and talk about that stuff. And then we have our money person come in and a salesperson. And it's all tied together through these common threads and common check-ins so that you're not stuck wondering how the pieces fit together. It's like the difference between this messy ball of yarn that's all tangled up and like this beautiful Celtic knot. They're essentially the same thing, but like one's a hot mess and one is like this integrated, oh, I see how that all works. So that's what the community is about. That's a weird analogy, but I've been crocheting, so.
It's very visual. Within the community, is this a membership or how does this work?
It is a membership. There are a couple levels, as with all communities, right? One that's a little bit more hands-on, one that's a little bit more self-guided. And regardless of how you fit into that and what type of support you need, we all follow a similar framework where first 2 weeks of the month, we plan a sprint. And then the second 2 weeks of the month, we do the damn sprint. It is a get shit done community. That first 2 weeks is all about assessing where you're at, leveling up your skills, getting the answers to the questions that you need answered personally. Figuring out what pieces of your business might be blind spots, where you might need a little bit of bonus support. And then we go into get shit done mode and use the power of collective momentum to actually do the working on and in our business all at the same time.
So people can be at any level within their business. Do they have to be at a certain revenue to be in the group?
No, this is for new-ish business owners. If you are dancing off beat, if your business feels like you just are not finding your rhythm, finding your groove yet, those are the people I like working with. If you're like, I'm pretty good, I'm rocking and rolling, there are a few things I need to tighten up, but I'm like still saying in my business, like, probably not for you. You're golden.
And besides this community that you've built, you also have a podcast with a very interesting name. So I'm going to let you describe this podcast. And I've listened to it, and it's really a fun podcast. Can you explain sort of the background behind that and what it is that you're doing on this podcast?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about it. I really appreciate the invite and the hype from you. Thank you. So I host the Shitty Idea Time podcast. I was definitely a hardcore perfectionist early on in life and realized in a creative field, initially being a designer, that perfectionism doesn't actually work. Like it doesn't take you places. It doesn't give you a vibrant life. One of my colleagues was like, all right, Tess, let's have some shitty idea time. Let's do some brainstorming. And that idea stuck with me hardcore by giving my ideas space to just exist without judgment. The world was all of a sudden vibrant. Like all of a sudden I was open to collaboration. All of a sudden I was able to, going back to the automation piece, see where my weaknesses are and be okay with it and get the support and the help that I needed. Things just started to fall into place. And I think so much of the narrative that we see around entrepreneurship is this lone wolf, pull yourself up from your bootstraps, you're doing it all by yourself. And then all of a sudden you have to be Instagram ready. And that's fucking stupid. stupid. I hate that so much because it's not reality. Reality is trying and failing and showing up with this mess and wondering, how can I untangle it? And how can I get the help I need to untangle it? And eventually maybe seeing a spark of something totally different than you originally set out with, allowing life's magic to unfold in front of you.
Some of the best ideas comes from mistakes because it's not something that you've planned. All of a sudden now you're faced with something that you weren't expecting, and then it ends up being way better. It's just amazing.
Yeah. The universe can create way cooler shit than my mind.
I've talked about brainstorming on the show before, and that's one of my favorite things. And I love to do it with okay, no judgment at all. You just throw your ideas out. And I've kept journals with just stupid random ideas. It might spark something else that's really brilliant. Besides the whole brainstorming of shitty ideas, when you interview people, what are they coming on to talk about?
I have two types of guests. One, I interview people who are doing really weird things. Recently had an insurance saleswoman who is completely purpose-driven. And you would never guess that she gets so much value out of selling insurance and soul satisfaction out of selling insurance. I had a world champion stone lifter, Highland Games record holder. I had burlesque performers, nerdy rappers, people doing weird, cool stuff. And then I also interview business experts, and we do an on-air brainstorm, and we build a business from scratch so that listeners get a little behind the scenes peek at what it looks like to experiment and build something cool.
I love that. That's so cool.
We build things.
People are going to want to get to know you. So where can they find you and how can they learn more about you?
Since you're a podcast listener, if you're listening to this podcast, come check me out at the Shitty Idea Time podcast. That's where I love hanging out, I think, the most right now. And then if you are a new and growing business owner who hasn't quite found your groove yet, if you're struggling with the business stuff and integrating it all, you can catch me in the Small Business Incubator. And that's at thesmallbusinessincubator.com. Pretty easy to find on the internet. You can also just Google my name and I'll come up everywhere. You can catch me in all the places.
What about LinkedIn or Instagram? Are you on those as well?
I am LinkedIn and Instagram. If you visit tesslorraine.com, you can get all of my links there. You'll be taken to Shitty Idea Time, to the incubator, to my LinkedIn, to my Insta. So Tess Lorraine, TessLorraine.com. All my stuff is there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tess. It's been really fun having you on the show.
Thank you so much. I so enjoy your podcast, and I'm just thrilled to get a chance to chat with you. This is the most fun thing ever. I am so grateful, and I just adore you. Thanks.
Hey, this is Heather. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If you found value in the show, I'd really appreciate it if you gave me a rating on iTunes, or just simply tell a friend about it. And if you're interested in learning more about my profit advising and coaching, please set up a discovery call by using the link in the show notes. All right, thanks so much and see you next time.